College football is just a couple of weeks away from ending its regular season, and more of these games are more crucial than ever. So we are going to discuss week 11 of the college football season. Week 11, look ahead to week 12. And before you know it, we have the biggest rivalry games next week amongst Thanksgiving, your conference championships after that, and then it's the bowl season. So let's get into it because there are some important things to talk about. Nico and Alex are here. What's up, gentlemen?
How we doing?
What up?
You know me. I'm just so dandy. And yeah, as you mentioned on our football show, Nico, we're really at the wire. Thanksgiving's next week. And I mean, look at where we're here. And that's how you know. So why don't we first get into it, and then we'll also talk about a little college basketball at the end of the show as well. So first things first, let's look at the rankings for the top 25 in college football. So the top 9 stayed the same. Everybody who's supposed to be there is supposed to be there for the most part. Or I should say the top 8 are the same. Now, some things to note. Despite Alabama's huge blowout victory, they stay at number 8. We will get into them shortly. Louisville goes up 2 spots. They're now a top 10 team at number 9. Oregon State gets up 2 spots. They're 10th. Some of the biggest jumps includes Missouri going up 5 spots. How about that? 5 spots for the Missouri Tigers. Penn State went down after losing to Michigan 3 spots. They're ranked 12th. So did Ole Miss with that loss to Alabama, down to 13. Oklahoma goes up to 14. LSU's at 15. Utah goes down to 16. Tulane. James Madison keeps rising up the ranks at 18 and staying undefeated. And the University of Arizona, even though there was a report this week that they may actually cut their sports program due to budgeting issues, we hopefully don't see that. But they're 19 and looking good in college basketball as well. Notre Dame went up to Tennessee after their beatdown loss to Missouri goes down to 21. North Carolina and Duke had a thriller on Saturday night double OT victory that led to them staying in the top 25. They're 22. Kansas State is in. Oklahoma State went down 9 for 24. And we have Liberty represented in the FCS at 25. So, guys, from what we have right here, right now, do you feel this is accurate? You feel there's any omissions? How do we feel about the top 25 going into week 11, going into week 12?
Yeah, it basically couldn't really change the top 8 at all. You couldn't really shake it. I'm still against it. I stand by what I said last week. I still, even though feel like Washington should have been in the 4 over Florida State, but the committee, after releasing the standings last week for the first time, and obviously this week for the second time, you got to keep Florida State in that 4 spot, unfortunately. I would like to see Washington go up to 4, even after that tough win against Utah. Florida State struggled with Miami, but hey, we mentioned it earlier. We have 2 weeks to go until championship Saturday. So, like, at this point, it's really hard to take a team out of the top 4 when you already have them in there. But hey, we'll see what happens. I'm still a firm believer that Florida State's something's gonna catch up to them, and Washington's gonna somehow sneak in, or Oregon, in the winner of the Pac-12.
Yeah, I kind of have the same gripe. I'm waiting for a domino to drop with Florida State. I feel like the committee just diminishes the value of the Pac-12. And for some of it for just reason with their past history, but I think that's why they have Washington on the outside looking in. I also understand why you couldn't budge on Bama because Texas has already beaten them, and Oregon's been lights out since the beginning of the season, with the exception of the Washington game. So I totally understand the rationale there. I think Missouri's kind of getting snubbed at 11. I would have them usurp Oregon State. But I understand them being right at that 11 spot as well. And honestly, I would drop Ole Miss and Oklahoma at least 1 spot further, because the reality is that James Madison's playing dominant fashion. I understand they're playing who they're playing, but you got to put a little more credit on them, and I would probably slide them right up to 17. And The only other issue I have is Carolina. I would have them usurp Tennessee as of today, but of course that could be subject to change with their inconsistency in the play of ACC. So again, it's just a matter of finagling positioning, but I think all the teams that are supposed to be here are here. It's just a matter of how you want to hierarchically rank them.
Really?
Absolutely.
So we think Tennessee really messed up last week with that big blowout victory, blowout loss to Missouri. And James Madison is like the last decade's University of Central Florida, a team that truly is dominant, and a team that has professional players on it. You could argue, reckon I do have to go into more with the JMU roster, but I see some skill players in there. And yeah, it's funny. This problem is happening again. You play in a lesser conference, but you're still you're sorry, I should restart. You play in a lesser conference, but you still are a dominant program, and it's just hard to compare and contrast. That's just one of the things about American collegiate athletics, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And that's why though, like mentioning that, that's why I'm excited for the 12-team playoff next year because you can
Mm-hmm.
give the James Madison a shot. You can give the UCFs of the past a shot.
Yeah.
That's my biggest gripe there is like it really sucks that we weren't 12 for the past couple of years because we missed out on those great UCF teams and everything that who knows. They remember a couple of years ago when they beat Auburn
Mm-hmm.
in a bowl and like it was ridiculous. Like you never knew what one of those teams could have done. Even like 10 years ago, like those Boise State teams that were undefeated. Like,
Yeah.
if you gave these teams a shot, that's why I'm super excited for the 12-team playoff next season.
Yeah,
Some
me too.
crucial content to get ready for.
Yeah, yeah, you took the words out of my mouth because all I harken back to every single time is UCF. And the only way they're going to get out of that situation is moving up into a better conference and stacking their schedule. So that's just kind of the way that James Madison needs to go about it too.
All right. Why don't we now talk about these crucial victories and losses that created this top 25 panel? So Michigan and Penn State was the game we wanted to discuss and wanted to see. Right after our college football show was announced that Jim Harbaugh would be suspended for the rest of the regular season. He could not be with the team in the facility. I believe he could still practice, but he will not be returning until at least the conference championship. And still have to secure their spot there. So there's some big games, including that very big Ohio State and Michigan. Now, obviously, we will cover that next week when the game actually takes place. But this important game with Penn State, after their loss, they went from 9-12. And I thought Michigan would have a more dominant victory. It was kind of close throughout. But regardless, they hit their spread and they still got the victory. But you were very into Penn State, Nico. You're no doubt a huge supporter of them. Well, what do you think about this loss and them going down the rankings, and if they could still make that Big 12 championship?
Yeah, no, they're Penn State's done. Unfortunately,
Aw.
it's the same. It's just another year. It's the same song we sing every year. You lose the Michigan, you lose Ohio State, and that's it. They'll go 10-2. They're like the Pittsburgh Steelers of the NFL. They're happy with beating mediocre. It appears like they're just happy about it. They're not winning titles right now. They're not doing anything. They're just winning some bowl games, winning the Outback Bowl, and that's about it. But on the other thing, I do want to say, and I stand by it for my fourth week in a row, and I just can't believe the suspension with Harbaugh. This is absolute bullshit. I hate it. I hate it. It just sends a bad look to me. I was on the side where I didn't really see anything too wrong with it, which I was in the minority there. But even if you did have a problem with it, this is just an unfair and unjust penalty, in my opinion. I think if anything, maybe you should have given him a game, but the whole season, Ohio State's a playoff game. Yeah, it's a regular season game on your schedule, but that game is going to determine who can possibly be your national champion. And to have him sidelined for that game in 2 weeks is just actually next week is just
Mhm.
absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it is absurd. And whatever you think of how heinous the allegations are, it doesn't make sense, the rationale, the wherewithal, the follow through, because if you're going to suspend him all the way through. Like, why is he coming back to the championship game? Why is he getting suspended through the remainder of the regular season? It makes no sense at all. So like all of a sudden, like whatever his incursions are, they just don't have an effect on a championship game. But I digress. It's what I took from this game with Michigan is that Nico said it. I mean, Penn State's done. They're a quality team. I just thought that they would give it a little more shake up at the top of the Big Ten. So I was holding out to see how this game would play out. But again, they're just a damn good team, a 10-win team. They'll be in a bowl as usual, but they're not the likes of Michigan or Ohio State or FSU or Georgia this year, unfortunately. And they're they got some fine tuning to do for next year and see what James Franklin brings back to roll out next year.
That's my one thing. People have criticized James Franklin for not winning the big game for Penn State. How much longer would you guys give him the leash before there has to be a change to be made? Or do you think he has the ability to change it around? And especially with NIL deals, will they be able to recruit better than their contemporaries? And then we'll finish it off with some more Michigan stuff.
I think they're recruiting well, and I think he's on the ascension. I wouldn't say he's turning it around. I just think that he's in the process of ascending, and we're only comparing him by what our expectations are of Penn State as a football program. Do I think they're going to be a Michigan, Ohio State? Absolutely not. And that kind of proved out this year, and I stand by that moving forward. I think that there's a year where you could have a down recruitment class like a Michigan or Ohio State, and they could steal a game on them and possibly usurp one of them and make that 4 spot, or even in the 18 playoff, they could be a 6, 7, or an 8. That's very possible. But as it stands, I think James Franklin has a lot of work to do, but he's definitely ascending.
Yeah, I agree. He's a great recruiter, but my biggest gripe with that is 2 years ago you should have got rid of him before that massive contract extension they gave him. Might have been even last offseason. I just didn't understand that move. Just because you're like, again, it's like a Mike Tomlin there in Pittsburgh. You're just fine with winning games, fine with winning the Outback Bowl, but you're never going to compete with these Michigans. You're never going to compete with these Ohio States if you keep doing the same thing, same song every single season. So I really don't know where you go from here because you have them on this massive contract, and now what are you going to do? Now you have to
Have a
next year. You got Ohio
Jimbo
State at home.
have a Jimbo situation. One of the things that took place this past weekend after Texas A&M's loss, Jimbo Fisher is out. They are going to pay out the rest of his contract, $75 million. And yeah, womp womp there. I know, right? We'll go back to Michigan real quick, but you just mentioned the contract extensions,
Absolutely.
and clearly this is another program with that problem. I think this is clearly never going to change. These coaches, clearly in the college or professionals in the NFL, they're going to get paid. And, a lot of people think too much. A lot of people think too little. And, I mean, does it bother you compared to how much it bothers some other people? It didn't work out. Texas A&M will get their oil money. They'll still write off the Manziel coattails, and they're just a moneymaker. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it's amazed me how many people are offended by this.
I just didn't. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the firing myself. I'm not like offended by it by any means. Like I don't like. I just think when you have a guy like Jimbo Fisher, when you have a guy that's so elite, I don't think James Franklin's on a level like that. I think Jimbo is on a certain level where if you're losing right now and the program's not right, you have to write out a contract with a guy like that. You're paying him no matter what anyway, so what does it really matter? I think he did have an opportunity to get that program back to what it was, load up that defense and everything. But we have to remember, before Manziel got there, Texas A&M really wasn't anything. They weren't if you're a kid and you have an option and you're playing at that university, it's hard because if you're getting recruited to Texas A&M, 90% of the time you're getting recruited to Oklahoma and Texas. So where are you going to go? And that's just my decision, my statement on that.
No, I totally agree. Again, we're setting this against expectations. We know that the SEC has always been a gauntlet, but if you go back, I mean, look, he went from a 7-win team, 8, 9, 8, and then, thus far he's been a 5-win team. But the reality is, I just don't know what the barometer is for Texas A&M. So you could say he's taking steps back, post Manziel, but they've had quality wins over the year. It's just a matter. What it boils down to is, are you competing as a top tier candidate for both these NILs and the recruitment classes? Because we know Texas, Florida, and California are the three hotbeds. Then you can throw Georgia and Ohio in there, but I think that this is the university's message that they're not effing around moving forward with the way things are shaking up with this consolidation of the Pac-12. So I think that they're forecasting that whatever NIL patterns and transfer portal patterns are coming through here, in terms of a migrational wave, I think that they either can't compete or they want to eat that money because they know that the alternative is so great and so powerful moving forward in this consolidation effort. So I think this has more to do about what's going on with the Pac-12 and how that's going to forecast for A&M moving forward. I don't think it's an incompetence thing for Jimbo Fisher, and furthermore, I think he'll get a pretty cushy second coaching job in another program.
And with his contract, he's going to get paid either way. So good for him.
Oh, yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him, honestly.
The timing seems weird, though. I mean, I understand it, but I think that if the Pac-12 had another year, I don't think A&M would be doing this. I really don't.
Hey, makes sense. We just have to roll with the flow on that one. And then back to Michigan. Yes, I agree with you. It seems a bit egregious, and apparently this is more common than we think. But the NCAA wants to make they want to make examples of people. Their influence, they'll always be the scheduler. They will always schedule the games. Their influence as a whole decreases year after year, especially with the NIL monies and the TV deals. And, let's be real, no one likes the NCAA with how screwed up and corrupt they are. But with this, though, and the money-making programs in Michigan, there are rumors. Whether this, right now they are going to file an injunction. They're going to fight this, and rightfully so. I would like to see what an unbiased judge will say about this. But also, I doubt we will discuss this further than what I'm going to bring up. But there were rumors that they were so upset that Michigan would leave the Big Ten. Do you think that's true? That's what they say. Reckon, who knows? It could be just a silly insider who's making shit up just because, that's what people are in the Twitter world. But it was said in credible news sources, but can you just believe that? Like, there's no way they would leave the Big Ten, especially when they're about to inherit all these big programs, USC and UCLA next year and all that. You guys think it was just a farce, maybe an overreaction?
Of course.
Absolutely. I think they just blew a comment out of proportion, probably.
Okay.
I think someone might have said something and been like, "Oh, well, like we're done with the Big Ten. We don't want anything to do with them." Like a comment like that, and they just twisted it into them.
Yeah, they're not going to be dumb enough to do such a thing.
Well, I think sometimes the hubris of that organization does get the best of them. They kind of have like a Lakers, Yankees, Cowboys kind of a complex to them where they're such a big brand. But I do think that some of their gravitas is inextricably bound and brought back down to earth with Ohio State. Like if they didn't have Ohio State, I don't think they would be even taunting leaving the Big Ten, because I think that they need Ohio State as much as Ohio State needs them.
Let's do it, boys. Let's do it. All right. Now let's get into some of the big games this week. USC and Oregon. Caleb Williams versus Bo Nix now. And Caleb Williams lost again, came up short. Defense gave up 36 points, and Oregon won 36-27. Okay, what do we get out of this? Bo Nix seems to be improving week after week after week. And like I said, there's nothing Caleb Williams could do besides getting hurt that will have him as the top seed. He's not going to win the Heisman Trophy winner. He hasn't proved it to repeat this year. Maybe a finalist from his brand. He is keeping USC in games, but he can't play defense. So regardless, what do we think about this? And Bo Nix's impressive performance, throwing 4 touchdowns for 412 yards, 22 for 31.
Absolutely. Great game. Another typical Pac-12 game that we've been seeing this past couple weeks. I will say I did make a comment about a month or two ago buy stock in a Bo Nix Heisman bet, and it is panning out. Dude is legit. I really do think he has a very good chance to win the Heisman. I really think he could beat Washington in the Pac-12 championship, and Oregon could be dancing. I really think that's a possibility. On the flip side of things, this is the first time. I'm not going to say Caleb Williams had a bad game, but this is the first time I saw him struggle since the Notre Dame game. Even with the losses the past couple weeks in between the Notre Dame game and this past week, he still balled out. Obviously, still had over 290 yards, close to 300 yards passing, but he was very inconsistent. But again, nothing to be concerned about. I really think that offensive line's not great. I really just think that whole team stinks besides him, and that's really it. But hey, I think Oregon's hot. I think Oregon is on a freight train right now, and personally, I think Oregon's going to beat Washington in that title game. Oregon's going to – I want them to sneak in. I've been calling it all year. I thought that was going to happen. I would like them to sneak in, but we'll see what happens.
Well, that's it. We'll see what happens. It's very hard for a team like Washington to beat Oregon twice in one season. I'm heavily impressed with Bo Nix. You know, we played this game of update your resume week to week, particularly in the context of the Heisman conversation. He has to be at the top. He has to be the one to be dethroned through 11 weeks. So I think that it's his to lose. He couldn't have played a better game. I mean, look, he was 4 of 9 on third down, which is very impressive. They still took care of the ball throughout the game. They limited the turnovers, and he hit guys in stride. Like he had 6 different receivers. He was lights out throughout the game. It's really hard for USC when they only know how to win games one way, to outshoot a team that can't be outshot, which is Oregon. It's just they're just such an electrifying offense that you can't fight fire with fire in that regard. And I just think that it's unfortunate to see the way Caleb has to go down like this. And it's gonna be tough because you're kind of seeing some foreshadowing of what's going to happen to him with a bad O-line that he gets drafted to, wherever that may be. So he's going to have to adjust his game as well. He's not infallible, but a huge win for Oregon, no doubt.
It's going to be fun to talk about. Very fun to talk about. All right. Alabama and Kentucky played each other. Alabama went over to Kentucky, and they won 49-21. I talked about Jalen Milroe very early in the college football season. He looked very good in the first 3 games. Non-existent, lost his job in the middle part of the season, comes back, and Alabama has been scoring, and they are 9-1, but still were not able to rise up the rankings. Not a lot of time left. Record Kentucky, I think if Kentucky was a ranked team, this would be much different, but they're not. But, and quite frankly, there's nothing you could do about it. They're going to play Chattanooga next week. Let's be real. That's going to be a beatdown. And then the week after that, you have your big Auburn game. But unfortunately, Auburn isn't Auburn of past years. And now after this, it's really hitting unless they could get into the SEC championship, which they will play against Georgia. That match is set. It seems like if they could beat Georgia in the SEC championship, that might be the only way they'll be able to make the college football playoff at this point, because they're not playing hard. Their schedule is pretty easy for the rest of the season. You just don't want a huge upset where Auburn is playing spoiler to you. That's the only thing you got to worry about, and you can't take that game lightly.
Yeah,
definitely.
No, you go.
Yeah, no, I'll keep it quick. Yeah, you definitely don't want to play spoiler and toy around with that team. It's kind of like Red River. It's like, even if one team is down or the imbalance of the rivalry is out of whack, you still got to bring your best for that Saturday. But Auburn's definitely not the yesteryear team that we remember with Cam Newton and all those boys. So I think Bama, again, they can only do so much. Even with the quality wins that they've had, it just, the first third of the season is kind of hard for the committee and people like ourselves and myself to unremember. They really struggled mightily. I understand they've course corrected since then. They blew out to a 14-point lead in the first quarter of this game. So I am, impressed as the season finishes with Milroe. I think they were able to kind of kick his ass into rear gear and kind of get that offense going. And, props to Saban for course correcting, but there's really not much more wiggle room that they can offer right now unless you get a loss from a Washington or a Texas.
Yeah. So here's my question for you, Alex. Before I send my take, I just have a question. So if they do go in, they win out, they beat Georgia. Who do you put in?
Over
In
Georgia?
regards to Georgia, Texas, and Bama.
Over Georgia, Texas, and Bama. Well, I'm not putting Texas in regardless. You're talking about the mobility through 1 through 8?
No, so like if Bama wins out, beats Georgia, Georgia loses that game to Bama.
Right.
You put both of them in, like, do you let Bama in over Texas?
No, absolutely not. But I don't put Texas in the top 4 either. Because we still have because I'm assuming that Florida State's gonna run the table. They're gonna probably hold at 4, even if I don't agree with it. And I think that Michigan and Ohio State, even if one of them has one loss, I still think they're a higher quality shoe-in for the 2 and 3. So it's just going to be a matter of if the committee holds Georgia or they let, God forbid, a Washington or an Oregon, and then the other 3 slide up. It's going to be really interesting. I know it's a long shot.
I agree.
It's a long shot, but I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take for this committee to come around to recognizing and actually putting the proper emphasis weight on what the competition of the Pac-12 is this year. I understand their biases. We've been there. We agree with it for years past, and all the burden of proof is on the past for that. But it's just like you have to look at how stacked these top 3 teams are in the Pac-12 right now.
Absolutely.
Right as they're about to leave too.
Right. It's just brutal timing. I personally do think, it's so, like, I know, like, a lot of our talks the next couple weeks are going to be about this committee and what they're going to do, but, like, I really just, to me, it's just so challenging. I think the worst thing for the committee this past week was if Penn State won. I think they're happy that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just really don't know what they're going to do if Bama wins that game for Georgia. Bama wins out. Florida State wins out. Oregon beats Washington. Texas wins out. Like, I just don't know how you could tell a team like Georgia you're not in after being undefeated for nearly 750 days. Like, it's just
the only thing would be Georgia's very weak schedule, but regardless, they did take care of them and still got those wins.
Oh, well, just to kind of push back, the only thing I can definitively tell you from the 1 through 8 is that Texas is not making the playoff. Like that, I can guarantee.
See, like, my whole thing is, though, like, say for some reason Florida State loses.
Okay.
Florida State loses, ACC team. I think ACC and Big 12 should be disqualified then, in my opinion. Their conferences are that bad.
I think the Big 12 is already disqualified.
See, I think it should be, especially how bad Oklahoma's been. But my whole thing is, if Bama, say Florida State does get beat, and say it comes in a situation where Bama beats Georgia, how can you put Bama in over that Texas team? How do you do it?
Well, you wouldn't do that. I would keep if Bama beats Georgia, even if it's in dominant fashion, I still have Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, Florida State. Like I would just change. I would change the order, or I would have a Washington or an Oregon, depending on who wins the title game. Because I just can't. Like, I understand that the SEC. Like, I understand that the committee hates the Pac-12 and they favor the SEC. When push comes to shove. But I just don't think that, gun to their head, they can tell us with complete confidence that you're going to have a one-loss Bama team the way they've played the first third of the season over a Pac-12 team.
Sure,
I can't see it.
I see. The thing is, it shouldn't be the case, but it's something the committee would do. I think. I really do. I think if Bama beats Georgia, I wonder what's going to happen. But Bama only can control what they can control. Just have to win out, beat Georgia, and see what happens. And that's my only take on that. That was a great performance against Kentucky.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, moving on. Here's the thing I wanted to discuss, and I understand you may feel it's been a bit redundant talking about the Colorado Buffaloes.
Oh boy!
But here's the thing I want to discuss here. They lose to Arizona after being up after being up at the half. And then they were even up going into the fourth quarter, and they lose off a walk-off field goal. And the only thing I want to talk about here is Colorado 4-6. Clearly, if they want to make a bowl game and probably be like the Kraft Macaroni and Cheese Bowl or the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl, that's going to be the thing that would get them in, because one more loss, the season is over. And though I think I mentioned the over-under was 3, they did overcome that if you build a future on them. They've had a horrendous, after starting off hot, and until the it was pretty much their season ended in the Oregon game in week 5. And I just think about, like, wow, it is insane how hyped this program was. I mean, Deion Sanders was the thing in the sports world and even in the news world, talking about how big he was. He was on 60 Minutes once again. You have First Take going to see them. You have Pat McAfee going to see them. You have you have Lil Wayne performing. You have Lil Wayne performing them as they run out the tunnel. And you had all these celebrities. You had The Rock come in to hang out, and everybody wanted to be around Deion. And here's the thing why it's important for us to stay on this topic, because we've been on this the whole way through, because no one wants anything to do with Colorado anymore. They forgot all about him. And I take pride on this show for paying attention and seeing where this goes. And you guys should too. So there really isn't much to talk about here as the season's going, but that bad loss against the ranked team really could have helped. Colorado used to be ranked too, but the fall from grace is really fascinating. I still think he will be able to have a strong recruiting class and with the NIL deals, but also if you keep losing, it's just like, man, it's just crazy how no one wants anything to do with these guys anymore, and they were the thing to talk about. It just shows it's just a reflection on our society. We care about what's hot, and when push came to shove with this program, no defense, no offensive line whatsoever. Shedeur Sanders, people were talking about him being a Heisman Trophy winner, and let's be real, as a whole, he's only played all right. He's not going to be a finalist. He has to come back next year. For people who are crazy enough to say he was going to draft, he has to come back to prove himself against these bigger programs as well. And they're about to go to the Big 12. We'll see if they can revitalize that conference, who you guys just mentioned are eliminated from college football playoff. It's just fascinating where Colorado has gone from here in mid-November to compare to where they were at the beginning of September. Isn't it just I don't know. I'm just fascinated with you guys. I just want to see what you guys think.
I think it was very predictable. I don't think before the season was predictable. I think you're right. I think it was awesome. They brought the likes of The Rock. You did all of that stuff. I think it's the same thing I've been saying. I think it's great for the future. The future in Colorado is bright. You're going to be able to get these recruits. Like, if I was a kid that had the opportunity, how do I not want to go with someone that walked out with Lil Wayne? Like, I'd be all over
Yeah,
that.
right.
Like, I'd go there in a heartbeat. But at the end of the day, they just weren't a very talented team. Their win total was set at 3.5 for a reason, and that reason has just been getting improved over and over the past couple weeks. And I don't expect this team to do anything, and they're not going to make a bowl this season. But future's bright. We'll see what they can do going down the road.
Yeah, Matt, I think you raised a great angle to your assessment of like staying on this topic and why it matters, because you made a good cultural criticism about how we kind of fall in love with the hot thing. I think that the way that everybody flooded in and how Deion was impactful for the league and the sport to have this viewership and all these eyes on this team, even if they were overhyped and overblown. It shows you that the ability to be swayed comes and goes like at the blink of an instant. So just as much as they had that popularity and fame and all the pom-poms and rah-rahs and all this goofy nonsense, it could go in a heartbeat as well, because that's the type of fans they attract. So it's not a knock on the board there, the academic, the collegiate people that do all that great work in Colorado, or the student body, but it's more the fanfare around it. Outside of that, it just comes and goes with everything else. And it kind of goes to show you that at the end of the year, no matter who's winning and who's losing, the fans are going to be here and they're going to be following their teams regardless. And The student body is going to be there as well. And I don't know. It's a really weird, it's a really unusual experiment. I don't know if Colorado's future is bright. This is still an ongoing experiment. I was a little more hopeful that his impact and his ripple effect was going to permeate in a more positive manner. It hasn't really panned out to be that way. I think they're trying to take it out of the public eye because it is kind of an eyesore. It's hard to watch it age, and we just don't know how genuine, how authentic, and or versus how manufactured this process has been. It's been a really unusual experiment to say the least. I'm the more I step back away from it, I assess this, a third of this way through the season, and now we're about a few weeks out. It's just it kind of perplexes me more as the weeks go by. We'll have to see what happens in the off season.
I agree with you, Alex. Very much. And thank you for saying that before too. It's just the matter of that's the thing because it's so removed away. And Rick and I don't, these recruiting, it's crucial in December with early decisions and stuff like that. Like, how does that all pan out? And how much do you care about, playing for Dion compared to where you want to take your next where you want to go the next level in the transfer portal and all that? And is Dion is he only as effective as much media attention as he is? Because pretty much when the cameras were gone, the program went back to a reality. And yeah, it's just clearly the conversation is going to take more time to talk about. We have a few, we just have to see where this all goes. And it clearly shows if you're not winning, the Rock isn't showing up, little baby's not coming through. You're not having the special first take coming in every week. Like somebody said it perfectly. Colorado, the first 3 weeks of the year was Linsanity. It was the exact same thing. Doing well for 2 weeks and then going back to reality. I mean, and it shows ultimately the casuals. Colorado is the perfect college football team to love for casuals. And I asked a friend today who was all up on Dion saying, I'm a Colorado fan. He's like, hey, you remember Dion? He said, who's that? Like, there you go. It just shows that that's just for casuals, and that's fine. I learned to appreciate more casuals. Just do your thing. And about that Linsanity is the most overrated, stupid thing I've ever seen in my career. It is crazy how many people think that was it a special time, I guess, in the sense of it's not like any others, but it's crazy how many people really hold on to it, and it shows how many casual Knick fans there are. Like, that's stupid.
As a casual NBA fan, I love Linsanity.
Well, exactly.
But Matt, just to kind of dovetail off that nicely, there is an interesting parallel between Dion and Linsanity just in terms of the ripple effect, because it was so quick, it was so fast, it was such an immediate peak, and again, it's two minority players permeating their position in the league. There was what you can count on one hand how many successful Asian NBA players there were. So I think that's why it had such a big cultural ripple effect. And then with the history behind with Dion, he came from an HBCU. He's making waves where, in terms of position coaches, you have more black position coaches, but you don't have a lot of, college football coaches, cream of the crop, that are making $7, $8, $9 million. So I think that when he entered that space and shook things up and had immediate instant impact, beating TCU week 1, it just felt like such a meteoric rise. And I don't know how manufactured it is versus how real it is. But the one thing I can say for sure that thus I've seen is that the following and behind it has been the most fair weather BS I've ever seen. And it's unfortunate because I don't know if it's indicative of where the sport is moving, because we know that the NCAA, the college football route, is trying to mirror itself more like the NFL. As the weeks go by, as the season goes by, you're seeing all these efforts being made where they're trying to get their ducks in order to have more crash collision course, big, huge Saturday matchups like the NFL. And I don't know how much that is good for the sport or for the integrity of it. And I don't know how much that Dion is equipped to handle something like that as well.
I think eventually, even with his what I think of positive ego and confidence, he will be able to manage that. And we'll just see this how telling this recruiting class is. And I know he's also bringing in some bigger coaches. I think Warren Sapp is joining the offensive staff. I don't know if he's a coordinator or running backs or a position coach, but that's the one. That's all these things to add. It's just going to be really interesting. And any way to help all people of color in getting their shot, it's great. And if you want to put an extra emphasis in media attention, fine by me. And just highlight and put the right people in the right positions. So that took a little more time than I expected. Didn't want to just mention the Rutgers getting shut out by Iowa. That's all I wanted to say on that one. But Rutgers, but it was interesting that Greg Schiano talked about, we have to go extra hurdles because we don't have NIL money compared to the Ohio States, Michigans, and all of that. Interesting comments there. And have anything to say to that?
Nothing. I don't have anything to say to comment stuff. I was shocked at Iowa coming in at 16. I was very surprised. I feel like they're a little overrated, but that offense is just pitiful.
Sneaky team. But Georgia beat ninth-ranked Ole Miss. They beat Mississippi by a score of 52-17. Very telling. That's a very big win for them. Finally playing a ranked pro opponent and a top 10 team and spanking them. What do we think about that game?
I was very excited to talk about this game. I will say Georgia answered questions that I've been having all year, and I know YouTube have been having similar questions. Like Georgia struggled with a lot of these teams, I think, and it was very good for Georgia, Kirby Smart, and the boys to come out there and just be like, "Yeah, we're still fucking Georgia. We're the national champs." Like they just came out fired up, proved their dominance. Really for the first time this season, we really, really saw them come out like this. Which I think is going to be great. You have a couple tough games left, and then you have Bama before you get into the playoffs. So you're going to be tested a little more, and I'm very excited to see what Georgia can do from here on out. And three-peat, possibly?
300 yards on the ground. I mean, it's just unbelievable the way they bludgeoned Ole Miss. Like, if you just saw that stat line, I wouldn't even need to read any more of the box score because that means that you are bludgeoning another team. I'm surprised it didn't run up time of possession, but again, Nico took the words out of my mouth. Like, it's the dominance that we've been waiting to see all year from Georgia. I think that they needed a game like this, even if it came week 11 or if it came week 7, it needed to happen. They solidified as to why they needed to be back up at number 1. I thought they were a soft one the entire season, and this just proved me otherwise. But shout out to Lane Kiffin for getting his ass whooped.
Something simple like that sometimes. And then a game that was closer than what appeared to happen. Duke and North Carolina go back and forth. And Drake Maye leads the University of North Carolina, leads the Tar Heels to a victory at double overtime. Drake, people are thinking who is going to be the quarterback to be selected behind Caleb Williams. Drake Maye has been Drake May's name has been picked as the guy who will get drafted behind him. Reckon we have some weeks to go. I'm going to throw to the floor. What did you think about his big win against Duke? And then I'll also get the odds on the second overall pick at the moment. But what do we get out of this game and Drake May's performance?
I'm so happy you brought that up, Matt, because I actually, about this game when we saw it was the topic for today, I highlighted second overall quarterback question mark. I think he is. After this performance, I really do think it solidifies he had a great game. He hasn't been having not that I'm saying he's having a bad year. I expected a lot better of a year, but I think he's just shown so many signs of light that you need to see in an NFL quarterback. And I have him as my guy, Caleb Williams. But also talking about the game itself, what a football game! Nothing like a Carolina Duke basketball rivalry, but hey, let them battle it out on the gridiron, and it was a great game for everyone watching. I thought it was an impressive win because we keep saying we kept calling the ACC these ankle biter teams. This was another matchup of these two teams playing each other, and the game delivered. It was another great matchup on this past Saturday.
Yeah, there's something about a 2-loss team that like instantly kind of couches everybody's team with reservations. But I think for all the reasons you mentioned, I think Drake Maye, like, I don't know. I'm still not convinced that he's the number 2 guy. I still think Bo Nix and Penix, they're still kind of in that realm. It just depends on what teams are drafting for what purpose in terms of the quarterback position, how they want to run their offense, and who's the best, intangibly at that position. So I'm going to hold off on that. But I do think that we're kind of looking down on Carolina because of the 2 losses. And I thought this was a very impressive win. The ACC, again, is not super top heavy. We've gone through all the proverbial, mentions of all the other teams, 1 through 12. But I think that Carolina, if they had a little more structure, a little more consistency through the season to back up and support Drake Maye on the defensive side of the ball and not give up 45 points to a mediocre Duke team, I think that we would be looking at them in a more positive light. We would be looking at them as a top 10 team if they were a 9-1 and had a better performance from the defensive side of the ball.
Good stuff. And I have those odds at this moment from Vegas Insiders. Obviously Caleb Maye picked number 1 overall, minus 500. So they do have Drake Maye second at plus 600. Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State plus 2,000. Quinnen Ewers, the Texas quarterback, plus 2,200. And Olomua Fashanu, which I totally messed that up. For the Penn State offensive tackle, plus 3,000. Then Pennick Jr. at plus 3,500.
Okay.
JJ McCartney at plus 5,000. The Michigan quarterback. Brock Bowers made some noise. The big tight end out of Georgia is plus 6,000. Bo Nix at plus 10,000.
That's robbery. If he makes a run and wins the Heisman, he's going to be up where Drake Maye is. Mark my words.
It's just that he's like 26 years old. I think. No, I don't know how old he's that old, but
Bo Nix is pretty old too.
But so was Burrow. He made a run and he ended up being the number 1.
True. Well, I will say the only other thing I will say, I think a lot of that, those odds come down to who is picking, because if the Giants somehow get the 1 and the Bears get the number 2 overall pick, and they don't trade that pick, it's obviously a no-brainer for Marvin Harrison Jr. because they need that playmaker with Fields. But if you do,
right,
which I think the Bears, I know we're not talking about the NFL tonight, but I just think those odds depend on who is going to be picking. But I will say, I wonder what the Vegas odds are. You probably can't even bet it on quarterback selection, like who's the second quarterback off the board. I wonder if they have odds on that.
Yeah, that's my question too. Because these quarterbacks, they come in very different forms, as we know. And I wouldn't have taken Bryce Young as high. I wouldn't have taken him 1 over CJ Stroud, regardless of what I knew. Now that we're into the NFL season, I just don't think you take a guy under 6 feet unless you have a certainty that he is a difference maker beyond belief. Like, he has to be so blowing you out of the water, because you have to even look at like Drake, like Drew Brees dropped in the draft. I mean, he went to San Diego. Russell Wilson dropped in the draft. He was just a little guy out of Wisconsin. Baker was way overvalued because of the run they made in the playoff. So I just think that these guys, it's a double-edged sword, because the draft rooms, they fall in love with guys who make these deep runs into the playoff, and I feel like that's beneficial if you're looking at a Bo Nix. But the other side is that there's a smaller guy who may have a David and Goliath situation and really run the table, and then they fall in love with him, and he may not have the intangibles to hold up in the league at the next level.
It's all right. You made a great take on the show yesterday. Plug in the show yesterday. Check it out. Was our NFL Productive Conversations podcast from yesterday. But you made a great take with Kyler Murray and the Bryce Young comparison, because Kyler Murray's that game changer. Even at Oklahoma, he was that guy that was running around making plays with his legs, doing what he could do. And yeah, it was a great take.
Word.
So let's make some picks for week 12 and then end it off with a little college basketball discussion. So let's go with the big games that matter here. And then next week's picks will be very crucial. So week 12. How about that, guys? We're at week 12.
Bittersweet.
And
I know.
we will take it all in. So the games that really just stick out for me include we do have Michigan at Maryland, with their spread is -19. Michigan's on the road. Another game without Jim Harbaugh. Your over-under is 50.5. I think it's fair that Michigan will have a hard time blowing this game. But I think they'll hit their over. Very important game to keep that number 3 position going into the very big Ohio State game. What do we get out of this?
My bet that I have in this game is Michigan, and my bet is not so much based off of Michigan. It's just me basing it off of Maryland. Same exact situation after on the horizon of a big game. We really thought Penn State was going to struggle with this Maryland team, overlooking their next game versus Michigan, and Penn State just manhandled them. And after we just saw what Michigan did to Maryland and them looking over the horizon to the Ohio State game, even with no Harbaugh on the sidelines, I just think Michigan's going to embarrass Maryland on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I would normally take the devil's advocate here, but I just don't see it happening. I think they're pretty locked in, they're focused, they have extra motivation, extra chip on their shoulder because it feels like it's us against the world type mentality with the way they're going after Harbaugh. So I think they're going to be playing for him and spirit of him, and they're just going to take care of business, and they're just going to ride that right into Ohio State. I think they're going to have no problem covering the 19.
And coming up next with that, Minnesota plays Ohio State. Minnesota has had an okay year. They're right at 500. They haven't felt like they've been good since like the turn of the century as a program as a whole. But the over-under is 27.5. You think Ohio State clearly covers that as well with a 49.5 over-under?
You want me to go?
Yeah, you say, I'm ready. Whatever you want.
I think they'll cover handily. I think they're kind of along the same lines as Michigan. I just think that they're locked in as well. They're probably pissed that they're the 3. They're swapping positions. I thought they were an artificial number 1 seed. I thought that was kind of by omission with Georgia not having a quality win in a dominant fashion. But I think that they want to return to the number 2 seed. And the first way to do it is just to have a dominant performance this weekend.
Yeah, it's very tough for me. I don't really like 27.5 in this game. That's just a weird number to me. It's a little high. I think Minnesota's a little underrated, but Ohio State's not losing this football game. I do think they win the game very easily as well. I saw 27.5, so very high number. Sneaky play I like in this game is the over. Over coming in at 50, which is rare for me to give out overs, but I do kind of like.
The reason I don't like the over is because the way that Ohio State wins, they win with dominant defense, which is unlike their years past. I do like almost damn near pitching a shutout with Minnesota, though. I like something around a 30 to 6 or 30 to 12 type of game.
Okay.
Might as well talk about the other 2 in the top 4 in the college football, where Florida State plays Northern Alabama. Don't even have a spread. And if Northern Alabama wins, then the show will I will retire early from this.
There's no spread list. There will be a spread come Friday though. Usually a game like that, they give you a 24-hour spread. I'll be all over it. Don't you worry.
So the only other 2 games that I think are important to talk about, we have Washington and Oregon State. Oregon State has been very hot this year. Lately, Washington stays undefeated at number 5. They are on the road. Oregon State is your favorite at -2.5. Over under is 63.5. I'm very interested to hear your guys' perspective here. Talk to me about it.
Game of the week, dare I say, biggest game of the Pac-12 outside of Oregon, Washington? I think it has to be. Oregon State has been playing unbelievable football. I really think it's going to be an unbelievable football game. Vegas setting this line at 2.5 was very interesting to me. I think it's very justifiable, and I think Oregon State gets the job done. I really do. As much, yeah.
No, come on. You can't have them going one loss into Oregon. No way. No.
I don't want it. Like I said, my theory, which I had 5 weeks ago, I can't really switch up my plan now. I guess you're right. This is what I'm gonna say. I did pinpoint it. Washington was gonna beat Oregon. I did originally have Washington winning this football game, playing Oregon in the Pac-12 and losing that game. With that being said, Vegas gets you sometimes, and Vegas setting this line at 2.5 really got me, and I think Oregon State wins this game on Saturday. I can't bet it. I just can't bet it though, because I can't do it, because I really want to see Oregon Washington undefeated. I really want to see that.
I was very hot on Oregon State the second half of the season, but I just can't. I've drank enough of my own juice. I can't do it with Utah. So I've already eaten enough shit with rooting for Utah this year. But I think they'll keep this game close. They'll keep it tight. But I just don't have any doubt that Washington won't prevail. I think they're just locked in. I think they're ready to roll. I do like the line at 2.5. It definitely intrigues me to like, what do they don't know that we don't know? But I think this is just a tough test on the road. It's going to be a low scoring, dare I say. Washington may be down at the half, but they'll pull themselves out of the hole, and I think they'll prevail at the last minute. I'm not taking too much from Oregon State putting up 62 on Stanford. Like, Stanford's a bad team, and there were a one-score field goal game with Arizona. They were basically a one-score game until the fourth quarter with UCLA. So it's just I'm remiss to be convinced that they can beat a Washington even at home in this altitude of a game.
Last thing to discuss. Georgia plays Tennessee. Georgia's on the road. The over-under is Georgia at only 10 points. Your over-under is 58.5. Despite Tennessee having some very ugly losses, dare I say, could there be a big upset here? Or nah? Especially with the home field advantage.
There's I don't smell spoiler, but I like the under because I think that it's just a classic bang it out SEC game. Tennessee, they may have had a tough week, but they'll bounce back. They have a lot of pride with that football team in that program. So I think they'll hang tough with Georgia, but they'll prevail. They'll probably cover the 10.
Yeah, I personally like Georgia. I think Georgia actually wins this game by 14 plus. I do think I like the under. I can even see it more of like a 24-7, like a real dogfight type of game. But with that being said, I feel like it's one of those games where Tennessee keeps it tight at half, and then Georgia just scores late in the third, early in the fourth, and this game possible by 21 points.
That's what I think too. But 14, I mean, you have a lot more confidence. Like, you think they're gonna ride that inertia from the last week? Because I think that Tennessee similarly is gonna have a little bit of bounce back energy.
See, I just feel like Georgia, like Kirby Smart got the locker room. I don't know if it was the practice that got intense, but he really shifted them in another gear last week for Ole Miss. And I really don't know what he did to whip them up into shape. But I think like whatever he said, what I believe he said was like, listen, like it's fucking go time. Like let's win 3 in a row. Let's do this. Lock in. We have 5 games left to be national champs, and hey, they can do it. You win this week, you win next week. You got Bama, then you got 2 more. 5 wins, you're national champs.
All right, guys. Now let's transition to college basketball. I think the best way to go about this, go back is okay with you guys. Let's go through the rankings to start. And again, we'll have more attention to college basketball once this season is over. But why don't we go from 1 to 25. We could start with Kansas staying at number 1. Pretty satisfied with that. A lot of scoring, a lot of offense to start the season.
Absolutely.
Did I
Big
say
win
number
versus-
5? I meant Kansas is number 1 for.
You said 1.
Oh, I did say 1. Whoops.
Yeah.
Great.
No,
Sorry.
you're good. Yeah, no, Kansas is even yesterday versus Kentucky. Great game. They proved that they're the best team in the country. And yeah, Kansas is great. Dickinson looks great. We'll see what this team can do.
I have no opinion on 1 through 4 at the moment.
Really? Why is that? At even with just to answer that, we have why did I lose my thing? Okay. Purdue went up a spot. They're 2-0. Arizona went up 9 spots. They're 3 and Marquette is 4. No opinion, Alex, on that. What about you, Nico? Especially Purdue's jump.
Yeah, I mean Arizona's really justified beating Duke at Duke. Unbelievable. Caleb Love just absolutely owns the Duke Blue Devils. I will say that. But Purdue, I'm telling you, let this team win now. Maye tournament, Maye Invitational this weekend. Purdue has a tall task playing Gonzaga in the first round, and then probably Syracuse in the second. Just throwing it out there. But we'll see what happens. Tall order for Purdue this weekend.
So we have UConn ranked at number 5. Went up a spot. Alex, you're a UConn fan. What sticks out here?
Well, they should be 1. That's why I was silent. I understand they've beaten 3 crappy teams, but they've won by 30 plus in all of them. They're covering like mad. I don't know. It may be just because they're repeat chance. It's us against the world vibes, but they're just dominant and they look red hot. They don't even look like they're being bothered yet until they get to until they play Kansas in a few weeks and then Carolina. So I'm excited to see that game. That's going to be the first true test of the season before we get into the Big East conference play. But it's just too early to get a read on Purdue. I just don't think that Purdue has the wherewithal to make any run in the playoffs. So I don't mean to jump from here to there, but they'll win a lot of games. They'll probably be a 3-loss team or a 2-loss team, but I just don't buy them over the long haul.
Okay.
Well, I'm actually really hot on Marquette though, and I think eventually Creighton's going to make some inroads toward right near that top 5. I don't know how long they'll stay there, but I'm really hot on Marquette. I think over the long haul they are a team to be reckoned with, right there neck and neck with UConn as well. Kansas again is a fallible one, but I understand why they're the number 1 seed. And who was the team I'm missing as well? The 3 is
3 is Arizona. Went up 9 points.
Yeah.
9 spots this weekend.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're always kind of the proverbial number 1 from the Pac-12. So I'm okay where they're at the moment as well.
I like it. So if we went 6 through 10, it would be Houston at 6, Tennessee at 7, Creighton at 8, Duke all the way at 9 after starting 2nd overall. And then Florida Atlantic staying at that spot. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'm okay with it for now. Again, it's all couched in for now. I don't know really what to make of any of the teams out west yet. Again, I don't know if they're fool's gold or not, but I do believe in Arizona as of now. And I think the real wild card here is Gonzaga. I mean, what are we going to get from Gonzaga this year?
Absolutely.
They were, we always knew that they were going to be able to be pushed around as long as Timmy was still there. But they got athletes, they got guys, they got a long backcourt. So it's going to be very interesting to see how far they can really cause problems for teams. I expect them to be really a locked down on fleek on defense.
Yeah.
So you're good.
I was gonna say, like, we're just gonna learn so much. FAU is a perfect example. These teams coming into tournament week. Monday got Gonzaga, Purdue. Another great game just to see what Gonzaga really is made of going against the number 2 team in the country. Same thing with FAU. FAU has a big couple games. I love this time of the year. These early tournaments are just great. And we'll see what happens. I think it's very hard to tell for a lot of these teams because, like Alex mentioned, UConn's doing what they have to do, winning versus bad teams by 30 plus points. And a lot of schools are doing a lot of similar things, and we'll see what happens.
So if we went 20 through 10 with UNC, Texas, Kentucky, Baylor, the big Baylor, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Miami, and Gonzaga. So things to point here: USC's five spot jump, Baylor's 5 spot jump, and Michigan's 14-point decrease after losing to JMU to start the season. What about that with those 3 teams in particular? Who had the most movement in your top 25?
Michigan State for me for sure. I just really think we talked about it last week. That loss was a little unfair. He came out cold. You shot 1 for 21, I think it was from 3. 2 for 21 was something ridiculous. And yeah, I think Izzo's going to get the boys fired up. They're going to be figured out. They have a big couple months ahead of us, and we'll see what happens. But long story short, that is my biggest take out of the rankings this past week was, yeah, you have to drop them, but 14 plus spots is a little egregious.
Yeah, 14 is huge. I mean, if you're gonna make those accusational like really big swings when you're like over assessing these teams, then I just need to see consistency. Like I would much rather after one bad loss, maybe like a 4 or 5 team slide. But again, there's more teams in the mix, particularly with the top 25 and that at the edge of the 25 that you're going to have a lot more invite to be swayed up and down that hierarchical scale throughout the regular season because of the fact that there's 33 games instead of 13. So if you're going to have these big swings, I just expect it from the other teams as well that have a down week.
All right.
Okay, can I just touch on the Michigan State thing one more time, Matt? I'm sorry. One thing that's baffling me about this is James Madison is the number 24 team in the country. So you're telling me when these standings came out 2 nights ago, James Madison, you have them as a ranked team this high, and then you're going to realistically cut out Michigan State by 14 spots. And not only to mention, Michigan State obviously just lost that classic game to Duke yesterday. It was a really fun game to watch, but you're going to go ahead and tell me Michigan State's not going to be the top 25 after you had them 3 going into the year? I think it's just a bad look by the ranking committee.
For sure.
Probably don't like Izzo, and James Madison's got to get into a Power 5 conference.
The only explanation could be that they're weighing a 1-2 record this early in the season against if the season were to end today, which still makes no sense because it's like that there's 30 more games to be played. So why would you assume that if the season was to stop today, which it won't, that they would be out of the top 25? Like I don't understand that.
But with that said, like my biggest problem is this ranking came out when they were 1-1. So now you're telling me they lose the Duke? Like what? Like how do you drop a team like that out of the top 25? You're exactly right. Like how do you do that to a team that you were so high on to start the year? It's just didn't mean to freak out a little bit, but it pisses me off. I hate when stupid stuff like that. And like
I encourage you.
I love Izzo, and like it's just completely unfair.
Always show all of your emotions here. And last but not least, it's fair to give you some discussion points about your Syracuse men's basketball team. Beat New Hampshire to start the year. Canisius, that's how you pronounce it, Canisius.
Yep.
Okay.
And then Colgate. Starting off 3-0 and are ranked first in the ACC.
Hey.
And big game against number 7th ranked Syracuse on Cyber Monday, next Monday. What do we think about the hot start and then the big game against Tennessee coming up?
I'll say a few statements. Plug in the NFL show once again. little Easter egg for you. If you watch the first half hour, my eyes weren't really focused on the focused on the pot 100%, but I was also looking to the right and having some reactions. Syracuse came back from a 24-point deficit to Colgate yesterday, which was just absolutely phenomenal. We pressed the whole second half. Coach Red Autry got the team fired up, got us locked in. I'm all in on the Syracuse team, even though the BPI had us going 9-22 and Ken Palm was 10-21.
Already a third of the way there, huh? If you bet that future.
Right. You're telling me I'm going to get 6 more wins for the next 3.5 months? Like that's absurd to me. But that playing number 7 Tennessee, and then I was talking to a friend of mine that's also a big Syracuse fan. They're like, "Oh, we got a tough matchup with Tennessee." Yeah, not only do you have a tough matchup with Tennessee, win or lose that game, if you win that game, you're playing the winner of Purdue Gonzaga. Lose that game, you're playing the loser of Purdue Gonzaga. So this team's going to be tested early, which we really didn't see in the last couple of years of the Boeheim era. So I'm very excited to see how this will help us now and how it's going to help us come ACC play.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great point.
Staying loyal might get rewarded. So with that, Nico and Al, great stuff on your perspective for college basketball and college football. We'll see you next week for some crucial NFL action. We'll see that on Wednesday. And we will also release the show on Thanksgiving Day for the college football big week ahead. And so right before you enjoy your Thanksgiving meals, check us out, and it will take you all through the weekend. So good stuff, gentlemen, and we'll see you soon.
Peace, boys.